Beneath the golden sands of Egypt lies a secret language waiting to be decoded. For centuries, the ancient Egyptians embedded hidden messages in their temples, tombs, and artifacts, messages so cleverly concealed that even today, scholars are still unraveling their mysteries. What if I told you that every hieroglyph, every pyramid, every sacred text holds layers of meaning far beyond what meets the eye? These aren't just random symbols or ancient decorations. They're a complex system of codes designed to communicate with the gods, protect the dead, and preserve knowledge for eternity. In this journey, we'll uncover 50 of these hidden codes, each one a puzzle piece in understanding the true depth of ancient Egyptian civilization. From the cryptic spells of the Book of the Dead to the celestial alignments of the pyramids, these secrets reveal how the Egyptians saw the world, worshipped their deities, and even planned for the afterlife. Some of these codes were meant to be seen, while others were buried deep, accessible only to the most initiated. So if you're ready to step into the shadows of history and decode what the ancients left behind, stay with me. Because by the end of this exploration, you won't just see ancient Egypt, you'll start to read it. And who knows, you might even uncover a secret or two that changes everything we thought we knew. Now let's turn our attention to the very foundation of ancient Egyptian communication, the hieroglyphic alphabet. At first glance, these intricate symbols might look like simple drawings, but they're far more than that. Hieroglyphs were a sophisticated system of writing that blended art, language, and sacred meaning into one. Each symbol could serve multiple purposes, sometimes representing a sound, other times conveying an entire concept, and often carrying deep religious significance. Take the Ankh, for example. This iconic looped cross wasn't just a symbol for life, it was a powerful emblem of eternal existence, often held by gods and pharaohs in carvings and paintings. Then there's the Eye of Horus, a symbol of protection and healing, believed to ward off evil and restore wholeness. These weren't just decorative elements, they were active parts of spells, prayers, and royal decrees, woven into temple walls and tomb inscriptions to invoke divine power. But hieroglyphs weren't static. Their meanings could shift depending on context, and some were deliberately hidden or rearranged to encode secret messages accessible only to priests and scribes. Even the direction the symbols faced could change their interpretation, adding another layer of mystery to this ancient script. So the next time you see a hieroglyph, remember, you're not just looking at a picture. You're glimpsing a coded language that connected the earthly and the divine. Moving beyond the hieroglyphs carved into stone, let's uncover the secrets hidden within the pages of one of ancient Egypt's most fascinating texts, the Book of the Dead. This wasn't just a collection of spells, it was a sacred guidebook designed to help the deceased navigate the treacherous journey through the afterlife. Each spell was a carefully crafted code, packed with symbolic language and hidden instructions meant to protect, empower, and even deceive the gods who judge the soul. Take spell 125, famously known as the weighing of the heart. This wasn't just a ritual, it was a moral test. The deceased's heart was placed on a scale against the feather of Mat, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was lighter, the soul could proceed to paradise. But if it was heavy with wrongdoing, it would be devoured by the monstrous Ammit, ending the journey forever. This spell wasn't just about fate, it was a coded lesson in ethics, reminding the living that their actions had eternal consequences. But the Book of the Dead spells went even deeper. Some were designed to transform the deceased into divine beings, granting them the power to breathe as a bird or shine as the sun god Ra. Others contained hidden names of gods, whispered like passwords to bypass guardians in the underworld. And here's the intriguing part, no two copies were exactly alike. Families often customized the spells, adding or omitting passages to suit their loved ones' needs, turning each Book of the Dead into a unique key to the afterlife. So while the hieroglyphs on temple walls spoke to the living, these spells were a whispered dialogue between the dead and the divine. Now, let's step even further back in time, into the shadowy corridors of Egypt's earliest pyramids, where the air hums with ancient whispers. Here, etched into the very walls, we find the pyramid texts, the oldest religious writings known to humanity. These weren't mere decorations, they were a sacred roadmap, a series of coded spells and invocations meant to guide the pharaoh's soul through the perilous journey to the afterlife. Unlike the later Book of the Dead, which was written on papyrus for the wealthy, the pyramid texts were exclusive to royalty, carved directly into the stone of burial chambers. Think of them as the original divine instruction manual, filled with spells to help the pharaoh transform into a god, navigate the celestial realms, and even command the deities themselves. One spell, for instance, calls upon the sky goddess Nut to swallow the pharaoh like a star, so he could be reborn at dawn. Another warns chaotic forces to stand aside, declaring the pharaoh's right to ascend. But what makes these texts truly fascinating is their layered symbolism. The same phrase might serve as both a prayer and a hidden command, with wordplay and metaphors only the initiated would understand. For example, references to crossing the Lily Lake weren't just poetic, they encoded directions to avoid underworld traps. And unlike later funerary texts, the pyramid texts were often arranged in no obvious order, as if their very chaos was part of the code, meant to disorient evil spirits while revealing secrets to the worthy. By the time of the later coffin texts and Book of the Dead, many of these spells had softened, adapted for nobles and commoners. But here, in these ancient corridors, the language is raw and urgent, a pharaoh's desperate, glorious bid for immortality. And that's the real magic of these texts. They weren't just about death. They were about breaking the ultimate barrier, turning mortal rulers into eternal gods. Now, let's turn our gaze toward one of Egypt's most enigmatic icons, the Great Sphinx of Giza. This colossal statue, with the body of a lion and the face of a pharaoh, has guarded the plateau for millennia, whispering riddles that still puzzle historians today. Unlike the pyramid texts we just explored, the Sphinx doesn't spell out its secrets in hieroglyphs. Instead, its very existence seems to be a code waiting to be cracked. One of the biggest mysteries lies beneath its massive paws. Ground-penetrating radar scans have hinted at the possibility of hidden chambers or tunnels, sparking theories about lost archives or even a hall of records buried below. Could these spaces hold forgotten knowledge from a civilization predating dynastic Egypt? Some researchers point to the Sphinx's heavily eroded body, suggesting it might be far older than traditionally believed, possibly dating back to a time when the Sahara was lush and green. Then there's the Sphinx's celestial alignment. During the vernal equinox, the sun sets precisely between the pyramids of Khafre and Khufu when viewed from the Sphinx, a deliberate design echoing ancient Egypt's obsession with cosmic order. Some argue the statue's gaze is fixed on the horizon where the constellation Leo rose during that epoch, tying it to astronomical cycles that governed rituals and agriculture. But perhaps the most tantalizing theory involves the Sphinx's construction. The uneven proportions of its head and body have led to speculation that it was recarved from an earlier, possibly even more ancient monument. Was the original face that of a lion, later reshaped into a pharaoh's likeness to encode a shift in power or belief? And why does the Sphinx's weathered body show erosion patterns consistent with water, not wind, a clue that has fueled debates about its true age? Unlike the pyramid texts which were meant to be read, the Sphinx's message is silent, written in stone and alignment. It challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to decode not just words, but the intentions of a civilization that saw divinity in geometry and the stars. Whether it guards hidden chambers, celestial knowledge, or a lost chapter of history, one thing is certain: the Sphinx remains Egypt's most enduring riddle. Now let's journey to the Dendera Temple complex, where a peculiar carving has sparked debates that blur the line between archaeology and science fiction. High on the temple walls, nestled among more conventional hieroglyphs, lies the so-called Dendera Light, a relief that, to some, looks astonishingly like a modern light bulb. At first glance, it's easy to see why. The image shows a large, elongated object resembling a glass bulb with a snake-like filament inside, supported by a pillar and connected to what appears to be a cable or cord. Could this really be evidence of ancient Egyptian electrical technology? Mainstream Egyptologists offer a different interpretation. They argue that the carving is a symbolic representation of a lotus flower, a common motif in Egyptian art, cradling a snake, an emblem of the god Harsomptus, associated with creation and rebirth. The cable might simply be a stylized lotus stem, and the entire scene could depict a mythological moment like the sun god emerging from a lotus at dawn. This explanation ties the image to well-documented religious iconography, where symbols often overlap in complex ways, but the fringe theories are far more tantalizing. Proponents of the ancient technology hypothesis point to the precision of the carving, noting its uncanny resemblance to a Crookes tube, an early electrical device. They ask, how could ancient artisans depict something so specific without a real-world reference? Some even suggest the temple's underground chambers, with their lack of soot from torches, hint at alternative lighting methods. Could the Egyptians have harnessed some form of lost energy, perhaps even electricity, as experiments with Baghdad batteries have hinted? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. While there's no concrete evidence of advanced technology, the Dendera Light reminds us that ancient cultures often encoded layers of meaning in their art. What looks like a light bulb to modern eyes might be a sophisticated blend of myth and astronomy, a visual metaphor for the light of divine knowledge. Whether it's a misunderstood symbol or a glimpse of forgotten innovation, the Dendera carving challenges us to question how we interpret the past and how easily our own biases can shape what we see. Up next, we'll turn our attention to another celestial puzzle hidden in the same temple, the Zodiac of Dendera, a star map that has fascinated astronomers and historians alike. Shifting our gaze upward within the same temple, we encounter another marvel etched into the ceiling, the Zodiac of Dendera. This intricate circular map of the heavens is one of the most detailed ancient Egyptian astronomical diagrams ever discovered. At first glance, it's a mesmerizing tapestry of constellations, planets, and mythological figures, all woven together in a celestial dance. But look closer, and you'll find clues suggesting the Egyptians possessed a far deeper understanding of the cosmos than we often credit them for. The zodiac's design is strikingly sophisticated. It depicts the 12 familiar constellations we recognize today: Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, but with a distinctly Egyptian twist. The bull of Taurus, for instance, is accompanied by the goddess Hathor, while the lion of Leo merges with the fierce Sekhmet. This blending of astronomy and mythology hints at how the Egyptians saw the stars not just as distant lights, but as divine forces intertwined with their daily lives and rituals. What's even more fascinating is the zodiac's potential as a timekeeping tool. Some researchers believe it functioned as a complex calendar, marking not only the annual solar cycle, but also the slower precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon where Earth's axis gradually shifts over millennia. If true, this would imply the Egyptians tracked celestial movements with remarkable precision, possibly to align their religious festivals with cosmic events. The temple's orientation towards specific stars during solstices adds weight to this theory, suggesting the zodiac was more than decorative. It was a functional guide to sacred timing. Of course, interpretations vary. Mainstream scholars caution that the zodiac might simply be a symbolic representation of the night sky, meant to honor the gods rather than calculate dates. The presence of Greco-Roman influences in its design, dating it to the Ptolemaic period, complicates claims of purely ancient Egyptian origins. Yet even skeptics admit the zodiac's alignment with key constellations is too deliberate to ignore. Whether it was used for rituals, agriculture, or divine communication, one thing is clear: the Egyptians saw the sky as a living code, and the Dendera zodiac is their attempt to decipher it. As we peel back these layers of celestial symbolism, another mystery waits just beneath the surface, one that seems to defy the boundaries of ancient technology. Up next, we'll explore the controversial hieroglyphs in the Temple of Seti I, where some claim to see modern machines hidden in plain sight. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most debated enigmas in Egyptology, the so-called Abydos Helicopter. Nestled within the Temple of Seti I, a series of hieroglyphs have sparked wild theories, with some claiming they depict modern vehicles like helicopters, submarines, and even futuristic aircraft. At first glance, the resemblance is uncanny, but as with many ancient mysteries, the truth lies beneath the surface. The key to understanding these peculiar carvings lies in a process called palimpsest. Over time, the original hieroglyphs honoring Seti I were partially chiseled away and recarved by his son, Ramses II, to celebrate his own reign. This overlapping created a jumble of symbols that, when eroded by centuries of weathering, accidentally formed shapes resembling modern machinery. The helicopter, for example, is likely a blend of a winged sun disk and a cartouche, while the submarine may be a distorted depiction of a ceremonial boat. Mainstream Egyptologists emphasize that these interpretations are purely coincidental. The temple's inscriptions were never meant to foreshadow technology millennia ahead of their time. Yet, the allure of the Abydos helicopter persists, fueled by our fascination with the idea of lost advanced civilizations. It's a reminder of how easily the human eye can spot patterns, even when none were intended. What makes this artifact especially intriguing is how it straddles the line between myth and reality. While the palimpsest theory provides a logical explanation, the imagery still captivates imaginations worldwide. It challenges us to question not just the past, but also how we interpret the symbols left behind. As we move forward, another layer of hidden knowledge awaits, this time etched into a stone that unlocked the very language of the pharaohs. Next, we'll uncover the lesser-known secrets of the Rosetta Stone, beyond its famous role in deciphering hieroglyphs. Now, let's shift our focus to an artifact that's far more than just a linguistic key, the Rosetta Stone. While its fame rests on unlocking the secrets of hieroglyphs, this ancient slab holds layers of untold stories within its inscriptions. Carved in 196 BC, the stone isn't just a dictionary of symbols. It's a snapshot of a turbulent era where politics and religion intertwined under Ptolemaic rule. The text itself is a decree issued by priests honoring Pharaoh Ptolemy V, celebrating his generosity like tax breaks for temples and restored order after rebellion. But read between the lines and you'll spot clever propaganda. Phrases praising the young king's divine grace and benevolence were likely crafted to legitimize his rule during a time of unrest. The priests, in turn, secured royal favor, revealing a coded dance of power between temple and crown. Then there's the stone's three scripts hieroglyphs, Demotic and Greek. While their parallel text helped crack Egypt's sacred writing, the Demotic middle section is a treasure trove of everyday life. It details legal jargon, temple protocols, and even hints at how ordinary citizens interacted with the state. For example, a clause about protecting the rights of the people suggests a bureaucracy more complex than we often assume. But perhaps the most intriguing detail is the stone's original home, a temple, possibly in size. Its religious context implies the decree wasn't just administrative. It was sacred, meant to be read aloud during rituals. The blending of royal decrees with divine endorsement shows how the Ptolemies fused Greek governance with Egyptian tradition, creating a hidden code of cultural adaptation. As we piece together these overlooked narratives, the Rosetta Stone transforms from a translation tool to a time capsule. It whispers of tax disputes, priestly influence, and a kingdom balancing on the edge of change. And with that, we're ready to step into the shadows of the Great Pyramid, where modern technology has revealed voids that defy explanation. Moving deeper into the heart of Egypt's mysteries, let's turn our attention to the Great Pyramid itself, a monument that continues to surprise us even after thousands of years. Recent scans have revealed something astonishing: hidden chambers and voids tucked away within its ancient stones, spaces that were never meant to be seen by human eyes. The most talked about discovery is the massive void located just above the Grand Gallery, a space nearly 100 feet long. What was it? For that's where the theories begin. Some researchers believe this hidden chamber could have been a backup burial room, a secret safeguard for the pharaoh's remains in case tomb robbers breached the known passages. Others argue it might have served a ritual purpose, perhaps a space where priests performed ceremonies to guide the king's soul to the afterlife. Then there are those who think it's something even more enigmatic, a structural feature designed to relieve weight from the Grand Gallery below, or even a repository for sacred artifacts we've yet to imagine. But the intrigue doesn't stop there. Smaller voids and corridors have also been detected, some with unusual shapes that don't match any known architectural patterns of the time. Could these be construction gaps, or do they hint at undiscovered chambers still waiting to be explored? Modern technology like muon radiography, a kind of cosmic ray imaging, has given us glimpses inside without disturbing the pyramid's integrity, yet every answer seems to raise new questions. One compelling theory ties these hidden spaces to the pyramid's alignment with the stars. Ancient texts suggest the pharaoh's soul would ascend to the heavens, and some researchers propose these voids might mirror celestial pathways, acting as symbolic portals. It's a reminder that the Great Pyramid wasn't just a tomb. It was a machine for the afterlife, every stone and corridor charged with meaning. As we stand on the brink of these discoveries, one thing is clear: the Great Pyramid still guards its secrets fiercely. With each scan, each new theory, we inch closer to understanding, but the full story remains just out of reach. And that's what makes this ancient wonder endlessly fascinating. Next, we'll unravel the truth behind one of Egypt's most enduring legends, the Curse of the Pharaohs. Now, let's step into the shadows of legend and uncover the truth behind one of Egypt's most chilling tales, the Curse of the Pharaohs. This infamous idea didn't just spring from nowhere. It has roots in the very walls of the tombs themselves. Ancient inscriptions often carried stark warnings carved into stone to deter grave robbers. Phrases like "death shall come on swift wings" or "the gods will punish those who disturb this rest" weren't just poetic threats, they were meant to protect the sacred spaces of the dead. But how did these solemn warnings transform into the sensational curse we know today? The answer lies in a perfect storm of archaeology and media frenzy. When Howard Carter uncovered Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the world was captivated. Then, a series of strange events like the sudden death of Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, fueled speculation. Newspapers seized on the story, spinning tales of a supernatural vengeance unleashed by the boy king. Never mind that most of the excavation team lived long lives, the myth was too gripping to ignore. The curse's power grew with every retelling. Books, films, and even documentaries played up the mystery, blending fact with fiction until the line blurred entirely. Hollywood gave us mummies rising from their sarcophagi, while historians pointed out that many cursed deaths had logical explanations, like infections or pre-existing conditions. Yet, the allure of the unknown kept the legend alive. What's fascinating is how this modern myth mirrors ancient beliefs. The Egyptians truly feared divine retribution for tomb violations, not as a Hollywood-style curse but as a spiritual consequence. The modern version, though exaggerated, taps into that same primal dread. It's a reminder that even in our scientific age, the mysteries of the past still hold sway over our imagination. As we peel back the layers of this story, we see how history and hype intertwine. The curse of the pharaohs may not be literal, but its legacy is very real. a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the secrets of the dead. Next, we'll explore an even more enigmatic idea: the invisible energy lines said to connect Egypt's ancient sites, the so-called ley lines. Shifting our gaze from curses to cosmic connections, let's unravel the intriguing theory of ley lines in Egypt. These invisible energy lines, said to crisscross the globe, are believed by some to link ancient sacred sites like the pyramids of Giza, creating a hidden network of spiritual or even electromagnetic power. But where did this idea come from, and does it hold any weight in the sands of Egypt? The concept of ley lines originated in the early 20th century, proposed by amateur archaeologists who noticed straight alignments between ancient landmarks in Britain. Over time, the idea expanded, with enthusiasts suggesting these lines carried earth energies or served as pathways for mystical forces. When applied to Egypt, theorists point to the precise alignment of the pyramids, temples, and other monuments, arguing their placement isn't just architectural genius, it's a coded map of energy channels. But let's examine the facts. While it's true that many Egyptian sites align with celestial events, like the solstices or the stars of Orion's belt, there's no concrete evidence from ancient texts or artifacts that the builders intentionally mapped ley lines. Modern science dismisses the idea of invisible energy grids, attributing the alignments to the Egyptians' advanced understanding of astronomy and geometry. The pyramids, for instance, face true north with astonishing accuracy, a feat of engineering, not necessarily a nod to unseen forces. That said, the ley line theory persists, often tied to broader pseudoscientific claims about lost civilizations or extraterrestrial influence. Some even suggest that the Great Pyramid sits at a convergence point of these lines, amplifying its supposed power. While these ideas make for compelling storytelling, they lack archaeological support. The real energy of these sites might be more symbolic, a testament to how ancient cultures sought harmony between earth and sky. So why does the ley line myth endure? Much like the curse of the Pharaohs, it taps into our desire to find hidden patterns and deeper meanings in the past. Whether you see ley lines as poetic metaphor or missed secret, they remind us that Egypt's monuments continue to spark wonder and debate. Next, we'll decode the towering symbols of the sun god himself, the enigmatic obelisks of Egypt. Now, let's turn our attention to the skyward giants of ancient Egypt, the obelisks. These towering stone monuments, often capped with gleaming gold or electrum, were far more than just impressive feats of engineering. They were sacred symbols deeply woven into the spiritual and cosmic fabric of Egyptian life. At their core, obelisks were intimately tied to the sun god Ra. Their slender, pointed shape was designed to mimic the first rays of sunlight piercing the horizon, a visual representation of Ra's divine power. The Egyptians called them tekhenu, meaning to pierce, and believed they acted as conduits between the earthly realm and the heavens. The pyramidion or capstone, often inscribed with religious texts, was thought to catch the sun's light, transforming the entire obelisk into a petrified ray of Ra's energy. But the symbolism doesn't stop there. Obelisks were also markers of time and space. Many were strategically placed in temple complexes, aligning with solstices or equinoxes to cast precise shadows that functioned as giant sundials. The most famous example is the pair of obelisks at the Temple of Luxor, where the alignment with the sun during the Opet festival reinforced the pharaoh's divine connection to the gods. Beyond their solar ties, obelisks served as political statements. Erected by pharaohs like Hatshepsut and Thutmose III, they proclaimed military victories, royal authority, and the ruler's role as the mediator between gods and people. The inscriptions covering their surfaces weren't just decorative. They were coded messages detailing triumphs, divine endorsements, and even curses against those who might deface them. Interestingly, the obelisk's form also held cosmic significance. The four sides often represented the cardinal directions, while the apex symbolized the Benben, the primordial mound from which creation sprang in Egyptian mythology. This layered meaning made obelisks not just monuments, but miniature models of the universe itself. Today, many of Egypt's obelisks stand in distant lands: Rome, Paris, London, uprooted by empires eager to claim their power. Yet their original purpose remains etched in stone: to channel the divine, mark sacred time, and proclaim the eternal glory of the sun god. Next, we'll examine a pyramid that defies convention, the mysterious bent pyramid, and the secrets behind its unusual shape. Now, let's unravel the mystery of one of Egypt's most puzzling structures, the bent pyramid. Standing in the desert at Dosha, this pyramid is unlike any other, with its sudden shift in angle halfway up, giving it a distinctive bent appearance. But what caused this unusual design? Was it a mistake, a hidden message, or something more deliberate? The bent pyramid was built during the reign of Pharaoh Sneferu, the father of Khufu, who constructed the Great Pyramid of Giza. Initially, the pyramid's sides rose at a steep angle of around 54 degrees. But as construction progressed, the angle abruptly changed to a gentler 43 degrees. One theory suggests this was a practical fix. The original angle may have been too steep, risking collapse, so builders adjusted it to ensure stability. Cracks in the internal chambers support this idea, hinting at structural stress that forced a mid-construction rethink. Yet, the bent pyramid might also carry symbolic meaning. In Egyptian cosmology, the pyramid represented the primordial mound from which creation emerged. The change in angle could mirror the duality of Sneferu's reign, his role as both an earthly ruler and a divine intermediary. Some scholars propose the bent shape encodes a transition, perhaps reflecting a shift in religious ideology or the pharaoh's own legacy. Another fascinating layer is the pyramid's outer casing. Unlike later pyramids, the bent pyramid still retains much of its original smooth limestone covering, giving us rare insight into ancient construction techniques. The precision of the casing stone suggests that even with its unusual shape, this pyramid was no haphazard project. It was a carefully planned monument, possibly meant to bridge the gap between earlier step pyramids and the true smooth-sided pyramids to come. So, was the bent pyramid's design a coded message, a structural necessity, or both? The answer may lie in its unique place in history, a daring experiment that paved the way for the iconic pyramids of Giza. Next, we'll venture into the sands of the Fayum oasis to uncover the truth behind Herodotus's legendary account of the lost labyrinth of Hawara. Leaving the enigmatic bent pyramid behind, we now journey to the edges of the Fayum oasis, where an even grander mystery lies buried beneath the sands, the lost labyrinth of Hawara. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus described it as a colossal structure, surpassing even the pyramids in its grandeur, with countless rooms, winding passages, and towering walls adorned with intricate carvings. He claimed it was built by 12 kings to serve as a communal tomb and a vast archive of sacred knowledge. But does this labyrinth truly exist, or is it just another legend woven into Egypt's rich tapestry of myths? Modern archaeologists have long been intrigued by Herodotus's account. In the early 20th century, famed Egyptologist Flinders Petrie excavated the site near Hawara, uncovering the ruins of a massive temple complex connected to the pyramid of Amenemhat III. While Petrie didn't find the sprawling labyrinth Herodotus described, he did discover evidence of a sprawling administrative and religious center, with foundations suggesting a maze-like layout. Could this be the remnants of the legendary labyrinth, or was the original structure lost to time? Some researchers believe the labyrinth wasn't just a physical space but a symbolic one, a representation of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, where the dead navigated a perilous journey to reach the afterlife. The labyrinth's design might have mirrored this spiritual path, with its twists and turns acting as a coded map for initiates. Others speculate it housed sacred texts, astronomical records, or even lost technologies, making it a repository of forbidden knowledge deliberately hidden from the unworthy. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed anomalies beneath the sand, hints of buried chambers and corridors that align with Herodotus's descriptions. Could these be the echoes of the labyrinth's halls waiting to be uncovered, or are they simply the foundations of a grand but more conventional temple? The search continues, with each new discovery adding another layer to the mystery. Whether myth or reality, the lost labyrinth of Hawara captures the imagination, reminding us that ancient Egypt still holds secrets waiting to be decoded. Next, we'll turn our attention to the silent guardians of the afterlife, the Canopic jars, and uncover the hidden protections they offered to the deceased. Now, let's shift our gaze to the silent sentinels of the mummification process, the Canopic jars. These ornate vessels were far more than simple containers for organs. They were a carefully coded system of protection, each jar linked to a specific deity and a cardinal direction, forming a spiritual shield around the deceased. The ancient Egyptians believed that preserving the body was essential for the soul's journey into the afterlife. During mummification, the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines were removed, carefully treated, and placed inside 4 separate jars. Each jar was guarded by one of the 4 sons of Horus, divine beings tasked with safeguarding these vital organs. The jackal-headed Duamutef protected the stomach, the falcon-headed Kebesenuf watched over the intestines, the human-headed Imseti guarded the liver, and the baboon-headed Hapi shielded the lungs. But the coding didn't stop there. The jars were also tied to the 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west, creating a symbolic barrier against chaos. The lids themselves were carved with the faces of these deities, acting as both identifiers and spiritual locks. Some jars were even inscribed with spells from the Book of the Dead, reinforcing their protective power. Interestingly, the heart was left inside the body, as Egyptians believed it was the seat of intelligence and would be weighed against the feather of Maat in the afterlife. The brain, considered unimportant, was discarded entirely. This selective preservation reveals a deeper code, a hierarchy of bodily importance tied to religious belief. Over time, the design of canopic jars evolved. Early versions were simple clay pots, but by the New Kingdom, they became elaborate works of art, crafted from alabaster or limestone and sometimes gilded. In later periods, the organs were even returned to the body after preservation, with dummy jars serving as decoys to confuse tomb robbers. Whether functional or symbolic, these jars were a masterclass in ancient coding, merging art, religion, and science into a single ritual. Next, we'll uncover how the colors adorning tomb walls held secrets of their own, revealing hidden meanings beneath their faded surfaces. Now, let's step into the vibrant world of ancient Egyptian tomb paintings, where every stroke of color was more than decoration, it was a hidden language. The pigments adorning these walls weren't chosen at random. Each hue carried deep symbolic meaning, encoding beliefs about life, death, and the cosmos. Take the color green, for example. To the ancient Egyptians, green represented rebirth and regeneration, tied to the lush vegetation that sprouted after the Nile's annual flood. It often adorned figures of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, whose skin was sometimes painted green to symbolize his eternal renewal. Blue, made from precious lapis lazuli or crushed glass, embodied the heavens and the divine. Gold, reserved for gods and pharaohs, symbolized the sun's unending radiance and the flesh of deities. Even red had dual meanings: vitality and life, but also chaos and danger, often used for hostile forces like the god Set. Modern technology has peeled back the layers of time to reveal these colors as they were meant to be seen. Advanced imaging techniques like multispectral analysis allow researchers to detect faded pigments invisible to the naked eye. In some tombs, what appears as a dull gray today might have once been a brilliant yellow derived from orpiment or a vibrant red from ochre. These discoveries rewrite our understanding of ancient art, showing how tombs were originally bursting with color, far from the muted tones we often associate with them. The materials themselves were part of the code. Egyptians sourced pigments from minerals, plants, and even insects, each chosen for its durability and symbolic weight. White, made from gypsum, represented purity and light, while black, from charcoal or soot, signified the fertile Nile silt and the underworld. The act of painting was ritualistic, with artists likely reciting spells as they worked, infusing the colors with spiritual power. What's fascinating is how these colors interacted with light. Torchlight in dark tombs would have made gold shimmer and blues glow, creating a dynamic, almost living atmosphere for the deceased. Some scholars believe the flickering light made scenes appear to move, as if the afterlife was unfolding in real time. As we continue, we'll explore how the very dimensions of pyramids and temples hid mathematical codes, revealing an obsession with harmony that transcended art and entered the realm of sacred geometry. Now, let's shift our focus from the vibrant colors of tomb paintings to the awe-inspiring precision of the pyramids themselves. These monumental structures aren't just feats of engineering, they're packed with mathematical codes that have puzzled scholars for centuries. One of the most intriguing is the apparent presence of pi, the mathematical constant representing the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, for example. If you divide its perimeter by twice its height, you get a number startlingly close to pi, 3.14. This has led some to speculate that the ancient Egyptians intentionally encoded this ratio into the pyramid's design. But was this deliberate or just a happy accident? Mainstream Egyptologists argue that the Egyptians might have achieved this by using a rolling measuring wheel, while others believe it hints at deeper, lost knowledge. Then there's the golden ratio, approximately 1.618, often found in nature and art as a proportion considered aesthetically pleasing. Some researchers claim the Great Pyramid's dimensions approximate this ratio, particularly in the relationship between its height and the length of its base. Yet again, debate rages: was this intentional or simply a byproduct of practical construction techniques? The precision doesn't stop there. The pyramid's alignment with the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west is astonishingly accurate, with errors of less than a fraction of a degree. How did they achieve this without modern tools? Some theories suggest they used the stars, like the circumpolar constellation of Ursa Minor, to calibrate their measurements. Others propose they relied on the sun's shadows during equinoxes. Even the pyramid's interior passages seem to follow celestial patterns. The so-called air shafts in the Great Pyramid, for instance, align with specific stars like Sirius and Orion, which held religious significance. Were these alignments symbolic, guiding the pharaoh's soul to the heavens, or did they serve a more practical, yet to be understood purpose? As we peel back these layers of mathematical mystery, one thing becomes clear. Whether by design or coincidence, the pyramids stand as a testament to the ancient Egyptians' extraordinary understanding of numbers, astronomy, and the harmony of the universe. Next, we'll uncover the secrets of the Serapeum's giant sarcophagi, where precision takes on an even more enigmatic form. Now, let's step into the shadowy depths of Saqqara, where another enigma of ancient craftsmanship awaits the Serapeum's giant sarcophagi. These colossal granite boxes, some weighing over 100 tons, are so precisely cut and polished that they defy easy explanation. Each one is carved from a single block of hard granite, with surfaces so smooth they could rival modern machining. But here's the puzzle. What were they really for? The Serapeum was long believed to be the burial site of the sacred Apis bulls, worshipped as incarnations of the god Ptah. Yet, the sheer scale and precision of these sarcophagi raise questions. Why would bulls, even sacred ones, require coffins with lids weighing 25 tons, fitted so perfectly that a razor blade can't slip between the seams? Some researchers argue the craftsmanship suggests a purpose beyond mere animal burial. Could these boxes have held something far more significant, now lost to time? Then there's the mystery of how they were made. Granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, Yet the interiors of these sarcophagi are hollowed out with corners so sharp and surfaces so flawless that even today, replicating them would require advanced tools. The ancient Egyptians left no blueprints or records explaining their methods. Did they possess lost technology, or were their hand tools and techniques far more advanced than we've credited? Adding to the intrigue, some sarcophagi show signs of being moved or repurposed, with chisel marks suggesting they were reopened, perhaps repeatedly. What was inside that demanded such secrecy or reverence? While mainstream archaeology leans toward the Apis bull theory, fringe researchers propose alternatives, from hidden rituals to even more speculative ideas like energy storage or resonance chambers. As we stand before these silent giants, their true purpose remains just out of reach. Whether tombs for sacred beasts or relics of a forgotten science, the Serapeum sarcophagi challenge our understanding of ancient Egypt's capabilities. Next, we'll turn our gaze upward to the stars, where the pyramids of Giza seem to whisper secrets of the cosmos. Now, shifting our gaze from the earthbound mysteries of the Serapeum to the celestial wonders above, let's explore the stars that may have guided the builders of the pyramids. The Orion correlation theory suggests that the three great pyramids of Giza were deliberately aligned to mirror the three stars of Orion's belt. This idea, first proposed in the 1990s, has captivated both scholars and enthusiasts, offering a tantalizing connection between ancient architecture and the night sky. Proponents of the theory point to the striking similarity in the arrangement of the pyramids and the stars. The pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure appear to match the alignment and relative brightness of the stars Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. Even more intriguing, the theory suggests that the Nile River mirrors the Milky Way, creating a grand cosmic map on the ground. If true, this would imply the ancient Egyptians possessed advanced astronomical knowledge and encoded it into their most enduring monuments. But how valid is this theory? Mainstream archaeologists acknowledge that the Egyptians were skilled astronomers, using the stars for calendar systems and religious purposes. However, they argue that the alignment isn't precise enough to confirm intentional design. The pyramid's positions don't match Orion's belt perfectly, and some deviations are significant enough to cast doubt. Additionally, the theory relies on a snapshot of the sky from around 2500 BCE, but the pyramids were built over a span of decades, during which the stars' positions would have shifted slightly. Alternative interpretations offer different perspectives. Some researchers propose that the pyramids align with other constellations, like the circumpolar stars, which never set and were associated with eternal life. Others suggest the layout reflects terrestrial symbolism, such as the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, rather than celestial patterns. There's also the possibility that the alignment is partly coincidental, a happy accident that resonates with our modern fascination with astronomy. What makes the Orion correlation theory so compelling is its blend of mystery and plausibility. Even if the evidence isn't conclusive, it invites us to consider how deeply the ancients might have woven the cosmos into their sacred landscapes. Whether the pyramids were meant to mirror Orion's belt or not, their grandeur continues to inspire awe and curiosity, bridging the gap between earth and sky. Next, we'll uncover the hidden names of the gods, where power and secrecy intertwine in the whispers of the divine. Now, let's step into the shadowy realm of divine secrets, where names held unimaginable power. In ancient Egypt, knowing a god's true name wasn't just about identification, it was about control. The hidden names of deities were like keys to their power, and those who possessed them could command even the mightiest of gods. This belief was so deeply ingrained that some myths revolve entirely around the theft or revelation of these sacred names. One of the most famous examples comes from the myth of Isis and the 7 scorpions. According to the story, the goddess Isis sought to learn the true name of Ra, the sun god, to harness his power. Ra, however, guarded his name fiercely, knowing it was the source of his strength. Isis, ever cunning, devised a plan. She created a venomous serpent that bit Ra, inflicting unbearable pain. As Ra suffered, Isis offered to heal him, but only if he revealed his true name. Desperate, Ra whispered it to her, granting her immense power. This myth wasn't just a tale, it reflected the real spiritual practice of using divine names in rituals and spells. But Ra wasn't the only deity with a hidden identity. Ammon, the king of the gods during the New Kingdom, was often called the Hidden One, his true name shrouded in mystery. Even Osiris, lord of the underworld, had secret names that were invoked during funerary rites to protect the dead. These names weren't written down casually. They were spoken in whispers, carved in secluded temple chambers, or encoded in complex hieroglyphic puzzles to keep them from falling into the wrong hand. Why such secrecy? The ancient Egyptians believed that names were more than labels. They were living extensions of a being's essence. To know a god's true name was to hold a piece of their soul, capable of bending their will or even unmaking them. This idea extended beyond the divine. Pharaohs had multiple names, some public and others hidden, to shield them from magical harm. Even ordinary people guarded their names carefully, fearing curses or manipulation. The power of hidden names reveals a fascinating layer of Egyptian spirituality, one where language itself was magical. Whether carved on amulets or whispered in temple rites, these names were tools of creation and destruction. Next, we'll examine the unfinished obelisk of Aswan, a monument that holds clues to the engineering secrets of the ancients. Now, let's turn our attention to a monument frozen in time, the unfinished obelisk of Aswan. This massive stone slab, still lying in its granite quarry, offers a rare glimpse into the engineering genius of ancient Egypt. Unlike the polished obelisks that tower over temples, this one was never completed, abandoned due to a crack in the stone. But its very failure holds priceless clues about the methods and codes behind these towering symbols of power. Carving an obelisk was no small feat. Workers used nothing but dolerite balls harder than granite to pound the stone hour after hour until the shape emerged. The unfinished obelisk shows the meticulous process. Trenches were dug around it, leaving just enough space for craftsmen to chip away at the sides. What's astonishing is the precision. Even in its incomplete state, the angles are sharp, the surfaces smooth where work was done. This wasn't brute force, it was a calculated dance of geometry and patience. But why go to such lengths? Obelisks weren't just decorative. They were solar symbols believed to channel the energy of the sun god Ra. Their tapered shape pointing skyward was a coded message, a bridge between earth and the heavens. The Aswan quarry itself was sacred, its red granite chosen for its durability and divine associations. Every step from quarrying to transport was steeped in ritual. Even the tools were blessed, as if the act of creation was a form of worship. The unfinished obelisk also hints at a hidden code of logistics. Moving these monoliths, some weighing over 1,000 tons, required not just muscle but genius. Researchers believe they were slid onto barges during the Nile's annual flood, using the water's rise as a natural elevator. The Aswan site, with its network of channels and ramps, was essentially an ancient engineering blueprint, a silent manual left behind in stone. What makes this abandoned project so compelling is its honesty. Unlike the flawless monuments that survived, the unfinished obelisk shows the struggle behind the glory. It's a reminder that even the ancients faced setbacks, yet their solutions, their codes of craftsmanship and faith turned stone into legend. Next, we'll decode the cryptic dream stelae, where pharaohs recorded divine visions that shaped empires. Now, let's step into the realm of dreams, where the divine whispered to pharaohs and shaped the fate of empires. Among the most intriguing relics of ancient Egypt are the cryptic dream stelae, stone slabs where rulers like Thutmose IV immortalized their otherworldly visions. These weren't just personal accounts, they were carefully crafted messages, blending politics, religion, and celestial guidance into a single code. Take the dream stela of Thutmose IV, nestled between the paws of the Great Sphinx. According to the inscription, the young prince, not yet pharaoh, dozed in the shadow of the Sphinx and dreamed the statue spoke to him. It promised him the throne if he cleared the sand burying it, a divine bargain. But historians suspect there's more to this story. Thutmose wasn't the direct heir, and this dream may have been a strategic tool to legitimize his unexpected rise to power. The stella's placement at Giza wasn't accidental either. It tied his rule to the Sphinx's ancient majesty, encoding his authority in stone. Dream stellae weren't just about ambition. They reveal a deeper belief that dreams were portals to the divine. Pharaohs acted as intermediaries between gods and people, and their recorded visions often reinforced sacred duties. For example, some stelae describe dreams where gods demanded temple restorations or new rituals, commands that conveniently aligned with the pharaoh's own projects. This wasn't mere coincidence, it was a coded language of power where the divine will and royal agenda became one. The artistry of these stelae holds clues too. Hieroglyphs framing the dreams often include rare symbols or deliberate omissions, as if to hide layers of meaning. The dreams themselves follow patterns, recurring motifs like celestial bodies, animals, or floods, that may have served as a symbolic lexicon understood by priests and elites. Even the act of inscribing them was ritualistic, turning fleeting visions into eternal decrees. What makes these stelae so fascinating is their duality. They're both personal confessions and public propaganda, spiritual encounters and political masterstrokes. Whether divine inspiration or clever statecraft, they remind us that in ancient Egypt, even dreams could be carved in stone to outlast time. Next, we'll descend into the underworld, decoding the maps that guided souls through the afterlife in the Amduat. Now, let's journey beyond the world of the living and into the shadows of the Duat, the ancient Egyptian underworld. This wasn't just a dark abyss, it was a meticulously mapped realm, filled with trials, deities, and hidden passages, all carefully documented in texts like the Amduat. Imagine a guidebook for the soul, detailing every step of the perilous journey toward rebirth. The Amduat, meaning that which is in the underworld, is one of the most detailed maps of the Duat ever created. Divided into 12 sections, it corresponds to the 12 hours of the night, each hour revealing new challenges and divine encounters. The sun god Ra, traveling in his solar bark, faces demons, fiery lakes, and serpentine guardians, all while the deceased pharaoh's soul follows closely, relying on the text spells and illustrations for protection. But the Amduat wasn't just a survival manual. It encoded a deeper truth about the cycle of death and renewal. Each hour symbolized a phase of transformation, mirroring the sun's nightly journey before its triumphant dawn rebirth. The text's vivid imagery, like the giant serpent Apep, chaos incarnate, whom Ra must defeat, wasn't just storytelling. It represented the eternal struggle between order and chaos, a core theme in Egyptian cosmology. Other funerary texts, like the Book of Gates and the Book of Caverns, offered alternative maps of the Duat. The Book of Gates, for instance, emphasized judgment, with the soul passing through gates guarded by fearsome deities who demanded knowledge of secret names. The Book of Caverns, meanwhile, depicted the underworld as a series of caverns where the damned suffered and the blessed received offerings. Together, these texts formed a layered code, offering multiple paths to navigate the afterlife's dangers. What's striking is how these maps blend geography with theology. The Duat wasn't an abstract concept, it had rivers, islands, and even fields of paradise. The text's precision suggests the Egyptians saw the afterlife as a tangible place, accessible to those who knew the rituals and spells and the illustrations. They weren't mere decorations. Every snake, gate, and deity held symbolic weight, acting as a visual cipher for the soul's journey. These underworld maps reveal a civilization obsessed with preparation. Death wasn't an end, but a voyage requiring meticulous planning. By encoding their beliefs in these texts, the Egyptians ensured the deceased wouldn't wander lost but would emerge victorious, like Ra at dawn. Next, we'll uncover the real-life city that inspired Hollywood's greatest archaeological adventure, the hidden ruins of Tanis. Now, let's step away from the mystical underworld and into the sands of a forgotten city, one that sparked Hollywood's imagination. Tanis, the real-life inspiration for Indiana Jones's hunt for the Lost Ark, wasn't just a movie set. It was a thriving capital, buried by time and rediscovered with secrets that rival any fiction. Located in the Nile Delta, Tanis rose to prominence during the 21st dynasty around 1078 B.C. It became Egypt's northern capital, a hub of trade and religion, often called the Thebes of the North for its grand temples. But what makes Tanis truly fascinating is its double life, as both a political powerhouse and a treasure trove of lost relics. In the 1920s, French archaeologist Pierre Montet unearthed Tanis's royal tombs untouched by looters. Inside, he found gold masks, jewelry, and even the sarcophagus of Pharaoh Susens I, whose burial rivaled Tutankhamun's in opulence. But here's the twist: many of these treasures weren't originally from Tanis. They'd been moved from other cities like Pi-Ramses as political fortunes shifted. Tanis became a kind of ancient safe deposit box, hiding Egypt's legacy beneath its sands. The city's link to the Lost Ark legend comes from the biblical story of the Ark of the Covenant, which some theories suggest could have been brought to Tanis. While there's no concrete evidence the idea fueled Hollywood's tale, in reality, Tanis's true treasure was its role as a time capsule. Its ruins preserved a snapshot of Egypt during a chaotic era when dynasties crumbled and cities vanished beneath the desert. Archaeologists also uncovered something unexpected. Tanis was built atop layers of older settlements. The city literally sat on its own history, with temples repurposed and statues reused. This recycling wasn't just practical, it was symbolic, a way to tie new rulers to the glory of the past. Today, Tanis reminds us that sometimes truth is as thrilling as fiction. Its ruins whisper of pharaohs who reshaped history, of treasures hidden in plain sight, and of a city that refused to be forgotten. Next, we'll decode a stone that warned of famine, and what it reveals about Egypt's fragile relationship with nature. Now, let's turn our attention from buried cities to a stone that carried a dire warning, one etched not in myth, but in the stark reality of hunger. On the island of Sehul, near Aswan, stands the famine stela, a granite slab inscribed with a tale of catastrophe. Dating back to the Ptolemaic period, around 300 B.C., this ancient text recounts a 7-year famine that struck Egypt during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser, nearly 2,000 years earlier. But here's the mystery: was this a historical record, a divine message, or both? The stela's hieroglyphs describe the Nile failing to flood, crops withering, and people desperate. It blames the famine on the god Khnum, who controlled the river's flow from his sanctuary at Elephantine. According to the text, Djoser's vizier Imhotep intervened, digging into sacred archives and discovering that Khnum's temple had been neglected. Restoring its offerings, the pharaoh appeased the god, and the Nile's waters returned. But modern scholars debate the stela's truth. Some see it as a later political tool, crafted to justify temple privileges during the Ptolemaic era. Others point to climate evidence sediment cores from the Nile Delta reveal periods of drought around 2200 B.C., close to Djoser's time. Could the stela be a distant echo of real environmental collapse? What's undeniable is its layered meaning. The famine stela isn't just about hunger, it's about power, faith, and humanity's fragile pact with nature. It warns that neglecting the divine or the land brings ruin. And in an era of climate uncertainty, that message feels eerily timeless. Next, we'll step into the hidden corridors of Luxor Temple, where statues of gods were ritually renewed and the walls pulsed with secrets. Moving deeper into Egypt's mysteries, we now uncover the hidden heart of Luxor Temple. Beyond its grand columns and towering statues lies a network of secret chambers. places where the divine and the earthly intertwined in ways few have fully understood. These crypts, often overlooked by casual visitors, were the stage for one of ancient Egypt's most sacred rituals, the Apet festival. Every year, as the Nile flooded, priests carried the statues of Amun, Mut, and Khonsu from Karnak Temple to Luxor in a lavish procession. But the public spectacle was just the beginning. Inside the temple's concealed chambers, something extraordinary happened. The statues of the gods were believed to lose their divine energy over time, and the Apet festival was their moment of renewal. In these hidden rooms, priests performed elaborate rites to recharge the statues. They bathed them in sacred water, anointed them with oils, and whispered secret incantations. The walls of these chambers, covered in faded hieroglyphs, still hint at the ritual spells to awaken the gods' power, prayers for fertility, and invocations to ensure the kingdom's prosperity. But why the secrecy? These chambers weren't just about privacy, they were about control. By restricting access to the gods' renewal, the priesthood maintained their authority as the sole bridge between humanity and the divine. The Apet festival wasn't just a celebration, it was a carefully coded performance of power, one that reinforced the pharaoh's divine right to rule and the priests' unshakable role as intermediaries. Modern technology has revealed even more. Recent scans show hidden passages beneath the temple, possibly used to move statues unseen or store sacred objects. Some theories suggest these tunnels connected to other temples, creating a sacred network beneath the city. As we pull back the veil on Luxor's secret chambers, we see a civilization that didn't just worship its gods, it sustained them. Next, we'll examine another curious practice, the millions of animal mummies that fill Egypt's sands and the surprising codes they carry. Now, let's turn our attention to a practice that might seem puzzling at first glance, the mummification of millions of animals. This wasn't just an eccentric habit of ancient Egypt, it was a deeply coded system intertwining religion, economics, and even politics. The scale is staggering. Archaeologists have uncovered catacombs filled with mummified cats, dogs, ibises, crocodiles, and even scarab beetles. Some estimates suggest tens of millions of these animal mummies exist. But why? The answer lies in the Egyptians' belief that animals were vessels for the divine. Certain creatures were seen as living incarnations of gods. The ibis, for example, represented Thoth, the god of wisdom, while cats embodied Bastet, the protector of homes. By mummifying these animals, the Egyptians believed they were honoring the gods themselves. But there's more to it than devotion. Animal mummification was also a thriving industry. Temples bred animals specifically for this purpose, selling them to pilgrims as offerings. Think of it as an ancient form of religious tourism. A visitor might purchase a mummified ibis to leave at Thoth's temple, hoping for wisdom or favor. This trade was so lucrative that some temples even mass-produced mummies, leading to discoveries of empty wrappings or bundles with only partial remains, ancient fraud in the name of faith. The practice also had a darker side. X-rays of some animal mummies reveal broken bones or signs of forced feeding, suggesting that not all these creatures died naturally. Some were likely raised in captivity or even sacrificed to meet demand. This raises ethical questions, but to the ancient Egyptians, it was part of a sacred exchange, life given to sustain divine connection. Beyond religion and commerce, animal mummies served as a kind of spiritual currency. They were buried with the dead as companions for the afterlife or placed in homes as protective charms. Each mummy carried layers of meaning, a code of belief, a token of hope, and a snapshot of an economy built on faith. As we unravel the secrets behind these mummified creatures, we see a society where the sacred and the practical were inseparable. Next, we'll explore how the very layout of Egypt's temples encoded cosmic order, mirroring the heavens themselves. Now, let's step into the sacred spaces where architecture and the cosmos collide. The temples of ancient Egypt weren't just grand buildings. They were meticulously designed to reflect the universe itself. From the towering columns of Karnak to the sun-aligned sanctuaries of Abu Simbel, every stone was placed with purpose, encoding the principle of Maat, the divine order that balanced creation. Take Karnak Temple, for example. Its sprawling layout wasn't random. It mirrored the journey of the sun god Ra across the sky. The axis of the temple aligned with the sunrise during the winter solstice, flooding the inner sanctum with light, a direct connection between earth and the heavens. Even the towering columns, carved like papyrus stalks, symbolized the primordial marsh where creation began. This wasn't just decoration, it was an architectural prayer, a way to keep the universe in harmony. Then there's Abu Simbel, Ramses II's masterpiece. Twice a year, on the pharaoh's birthday and coronation day, sunlight pierces the temple's dark corridor, illuminating statues of the gods deep inside. This precise alignment wasn't luck, it was advanced astronomy encoded in stone. The temple's axis was calculated so precisely that when the Aswan Dam threatened to submerge it, engineers had to cut the entire structure into blocks and move it uphill to preserve this celestial calendar. But the coding goes deeper. Temple floors often sloped upward toward the sanctuary, symbolizing the ascent from the chaotic earthly realm to the pure divine. Wall carvings followed strict grids, their proportions tied to sacred numbers. Even the colors had meaning. Blue ceilings dotted with stars replicated the night sky, while black floors represented the fertile Nile silt. Every detail was a piece of a larger puzzle, a blueprint of the cosmos. What's astonishing is how these designs persisted for millennia. Despite changes in rulers and styles, the geometric code of Maat remained unchanged, a testament to how deeply the Egyptians believed in their temples as bridges between worlds. Next, we'll examine a curious artifact that seems to defy its time, the Saqqara bird, a wooden model that some argue holds secrets of ancient flight. Now, let's turn our attention to an artifact that has sparked debates for decades, the Saqqara bird. Discovered in 1898 during an excavation near the Step Pyramid of Djoser, this small wooden object resembles a modern glider, complete with wings and a tail fin. At first glance, it might seem like a simple child's toy or a ceremonial piece, but its design has led some to wonder if the ancient Egyptians had a grasp of aerodynamics far ahead of their time. The bird measures roughly 6 inches in length, with wings that curve slightly upward, a feature that mirrors the dihedral angle used in modern aircraft for stability. Its streamlined body and flat, horizontal tail fin only add to the mystery. Mainstream Egyptologists argue it's likely a stylized falcon, possibly a ritual object tied to the god Horus or a decorative weather vane. But aviation enthusiasts point out that if you attach a stabilizing rudder to the tail, the Saqqara bird exhibits gliding capabilities when tested in wind tunnels. Could this be evidence of lost knowledge? Ancient Egyptian texts don't mention flight, but they do describe mythical journeys through the sky, like the sun god Ra's daily voyage in his solar bark. Some theorists suggest the bird might represent a symbolic or even functional understanding of flight, perhaps inspired by observing birds in nature. Others counter that without any surviving documentation or larger-scale models, it's a stretch to assume advanced aeronautics. What makes the Saqqara bird even more intriguing is its context. It was found among other funerary objects, hinting at a possible spiritual purpose, perhaps a vessel for the soul to ascend to the heavens. Yet the precision of its shape keeps the debate alive. Whether it's a toy, a sacred artifact, or something more, this unassuming wooden figure reminds us that ancient Egypt still holds puzzles waiting to be decoded. Next, we'll explore another symbol that carried profound meaning, the scarab beetle, a tiny creature that encoded the cycle of life, death, and rebirth in Egyptian belief. Moving from the mysteries of flight to the cycles of life, we encounter one of ancient Egypt's most enduring symbols, the scarab beetle. This humble creature, known as Khepri in Egyptian mythology, was far more than just an insect. It became a powerful code for rebirth, transformation, and the eternal journey of the sun. the scarab's significance stemmed from its behavior in nature. Egyptians observed how the beetle rolled dung into balls, burying them in the ground only for new life to emerge later, a perfect metaphor for death and renewal. This natural process mirrored their belief in the sun god Ra's daily rebirth at dawn, as well as the human soul's journey through the afterlife. Khepri, depicted as a man with a scarab for a head or as the beetle itself, was the god who pushed the sun across the sky each day, just as the beetle rolled its ball across the earth. This symbolism permeated Egyptian culture. Scarab amulets, often carved from green stones like jade or faience to represent growth, were placed on mummies to ensure safe passage into the next life. The underside of these amulets frequently bore inscriptions, names of pharaohs, protective spells, or even copies of Chapter 30 of the Book of the Dead, which invoked Khepri's power. Some scarabs, called heart scarabs, were larger and inscribed with spells to prevent the heart from betraying its owner during the afterlife's weighing ceremony. In art, scarabs appeared everywhere, from temple reliefs to jewelry. They adorned rings, pectorals, and even the seals of officials, doubling as stamps for documents. Solar rituals honored Khepri at dawn, with priests reciting hymns comparing the rising sun to the scarab emerging from the earth. The beetle's image was also woven into architecture. At Karnak Temple, a giant stone scarab sits near the sacred lake, a reminder of cyclical renewal. What makes the scarab's code so fascinating is its duality. It bridged the mundane and the divine, turning an everyday insect into a cosmic symbol. Whether as a protective charm, a royal seal, or a solar emblem, the scarab encoded a truth the Egyptians held sacred: that life, like the sun, could always begin anew. Next, we'll uncover how even the simplest objects, like ancient papyrus scrolls, held hidden marks that revealed their origins and authenticity. Shifting from the sacred symbolism of scarabs to the world of ancient documents, we now explore a hidden code that lies beneath the surface, literally. Some papyri, those delicate sheets made from the pith of the reedy papyrus plant, carry nearly invisible marks that act like secret signatures. These faint watermarks, often overlooked by the untrained eye, hold clues to a document's origins, age, and even its authenticity. Egyptologists have discovered that these subtle impressions were unintentional byproducts of the papyrus-making process. When the plant strips were layered and pressed together, variations in thickness or tiny fibers left behind unique patterns, almost like fingerprints. Over time, researchers realized these patterns could be used to trace a document back to specific workshops or time periods. For example, a papyrus from the reign of Ramesses II might bear a distinct watermark that differs from one produced under Cleopatra. But the real intrigue lies in how these hidden marks help uncover forgeries. Modern counterfeiters, no matter how skilled, often struggle to replicate the natural inconsistencies of ancient papyrus. A too-perfect sheet, or one with watermarks that don't match the supposed era, raises red flags. In one famous case, a supposedly ancient medical text was exposed as a fake when its watermark matched a batch of papyrus known to be produced in the 19th century. Beyond forgery detection, these watermarks also reveal trade networks. If a document found in Thebes carries a watermark linked to a Memphis workshop, it hints at bustling exchanges between cities. Even the quality of the marks can tell stories. Coarser papyrus might signal an everyday administrative text, while finer sheets with barely their watermarks could denote a royal decree. What makes these hidden codes so remarkable is their accidental nature. Unlike deliberate symbols like hieroglyphs, they were never meant to be read. Yet today, they whisper truths about craftsmanship, commerce, and the clever methods used to separate the genuine from the fabricated. Next, we'll step into the hushed halls of Egypt's temples, where priests performed daily rituals shrouded in secrecy and encoded with meaning. Now, let's step behind the towering temple doors and into the sacred spaces where Egypt's priests performed rituals so secret, even most ancient Egyptians never witnessed them. These ceremonies weren't just routine, they were a coded language of devotion, meant to sustain the gods and maintain cosmic order. Each dawn, before sunlight touched the temple floors, high priests would purify themselves with water and natron, a salt mixture symbolizing divine purity. Only then could they enter the innermost sanctuary where the statue of the god resided. The act of dressing this statue was itself a ritual layered with meaning. The priests would anoint it with oils, adorn it with linen garments, and offer jewelry, each step accompanied by hushed hymns. These hymns weren't ordinary prayers, they were encrypted invocations using archaic language and wordplay believed to hold power over the divine. One surviving text describes a chant where the name of the goddess Hathor is rearranged syllable by syllable, creating a sound code said to awaken her presence. Other rituals involved precise sequences, lighting 7 lamps in a circle, or scattering grains in patterns that mirrored constellations. Even the temple's layout was part of the code. As priests moved from the brightly lit outer halls to the shadowy inner chambers, they symbolically reenacted the sun god Ra's journey through the underworld. But why such secrecy? The Egyptians believed that if these rites were performed incorrectly, or worse, witnessed by the uninitiated, the gods might withdraw their favor, bringing chaos to the land. This fear led to another layer of encoding symbolic gestures. A priest raising his right palm wasn't just a greeting, it represented the hieroglyph for life. The sweeping of the temple floor with a palm branch wasn't mere cleaning, it mimicked the god Thoth writing divine wisdom. Perhaps the most intriguing code lies in the opening of the mouth ceremony, a ritual to activate statues or mummies. Using a ceremonial adze, a tool linked to the constellation Ursa Major, priests would speak hidden commands into the statue's ear, believed to grant it the ability to hear prayers. Modern linguists have struggled to translate these phrases fully, as they blend cryptic metaphors with archaic grammar. These rites weren't just superstition, they were a sophisticated system blending theater, cryptography, and theology. And while the temples now stand silent, the codes left behind in texts and carvings hint at a world where every gesture, word, and object held layers of meaning. Next, we'll uncover how ancient artisans achieved impossible precision in their stonework, a code of craftsmanship that still baffles engineers today. Moving from the sacred rituals of priests to the silent mastery of artisans, we now uncover one of Egypt's most astonishing secrets, the lost technology behind their flawless stone carvings. The statues and monuments left behind aren't just art, they're a testament to a hidden code of craftsmanship that modern engineers still struggle to replicate. Take a closer look at the Great Sphinx or the seated statues of Pharaoh Khafre, and you'll notice something extraordinary. The symmetry is perfect, down to fractions of a millimeter. How did ancient sculptors achieve this without modern tools? The answer lies in a combination of ingenious techniques and what we might call a stone carver's code. First, the tools. While copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones might seem primitive, they were used with extraordinary precision. Archaeologists have found evidence of a grid system, a literal code etched onto stone blocks. Artists would sketch a proportional grid over the raw stone, mapping out every curve and angle before carving. This grid wasn't random, it followed strict mathematical ratios, often based on the human body's proportions. For instance, the distance from the hairline to the chin might be divided into 18 equal units, ensuring facial features stayed perfectly balanced. But the real mystery lies in the finishing. How did they polish granite or diorite to a mirror-like shine without abrasives like diamond dust? Recent experiments suggest they used a slurry of crushed quartz and water, applied with leather pads, a method that could take months for a single statue. Even more puzzling are the drill holes found in artifacts like the sarcophagi of the Serapeum. These cylindrical holes, some over 6 feet deep, are so precise that they suggest the use of tubular drills with diamond-tipped bits, except diamonds weren't known in Egypt at the time. Then there's the code of apprenticeship. Master sculptors didn't just teach technique, they passed down guarded secrets. A surviving scribe's note from Deir el-Medina mentions the 7 strokes of the adze, a rhythmic carving method said to channel divine precision. Other texts refer to listening to the stone, a practice where craftsmen tapped blocks to detect hidden flaws, much like modern sonar. Perhaps the most compelling evidence of this lost technology is the unfinished obelisk in Aswan. Abandoned mid-construction, it reveals the exact process. Workers carved trenches around the obelisk, then used wooden wedges soaked in water to split it from the bedrock. But even here, the precision is baffling. The sides are nearly perfectly parallel, with corners angled at exactly 90 degrees, a feat that would challenge modern engineers with laser guides. What does this tell us? The ancient Egyptians didn't just carve stone, they spoke its language. Every chip, every polish, every measurement was part of a larger code, one that blended geometry, physics, and an almost spiritual understanding of materials. And while we've decoded some of their methods, others remain as enigmatic as the statues themselves. Next, we'll turn to the oval frames that protected pharaohs' names, the cartouches, and uncover how these simple shapes held the power to defy time itself. Now, let's unravel the mystery of the cartouche, those elegant oval frames that encircled the names of Egypt's rulers. Far more than just decorative, these symbols were a powerful blend of identity, magic, and political messaging, encoding secrets that spanned centuries of pharaonic rule. Picture this, a single loop of rope tied at the bottom, forming a protective barrier around a king's name. That's the cartouche, a shape so significant it was believed to shield the pharaoh's soul from chaos and oblivion. The word itself comes from the French for bullet, a nod to its rounded form, but to the ancient Egyptians it was shenu, meaning to encircle, and what it encircled was nothing short of sacred. Take the cartouche of Tutankhamun, for example. Inside that oval, his name wasn't just written, it was enshrined. Hieroglyphs within cartouches often included symbols of power, like the ankh or the scepter, reinforcing the king's divine authority. But here's the hidden code. The oval itself was a miniature cosmos. The loop represented the sun's path across the sky, with the horizontal line beneath symbolizing the horizon. By placing a name inside it, the pharaoh was literally tying their identity to the eternal cycle of day and night, ensuring their legacy would endure as long as the sun itself. The magic didn't stop there. Cartouches were also amulets. Archaeologists have found them carved into temple walls, painted on coffins, and even woven into jewelry. Wearing a cartouche wasn't just about loyalty, it was a way to harness the king's divine energy for protection. Some spells in the Book of the Dead even instruct the deceased to speak the names in the cartouches to gain favor in the afterlife, a clear sign these ovals were seen as portals to power. Over time, the design evolved. Early dynasties used simpler, elongated ovals, but by the New Kingdom, cartouches became more standardized with sharper corners and intricate hieroglyphs. Queen Hatshepsut's cartouches, for instance, sometimes included female determinatives, a subtle nod to her unprecedented role as a female pharaoh. Meanwhile, Akhenaten's Amarna period saw cartouches stretched into exaggerated shapes, mirroring his revolutionary sun worship. Perhaps the most intriguing twist, some cartouches were erased. When a pharaoh fell out of favor, like Akhenaten or Hatshepsut later in her reign, their cartouches were chiseled away, a practice known as damnatio memoriae. But even this act was coded. By destroying the oval, enemies weren't just erasing a name, they were severing the king's link to eternity, a fate worse than death in Egyptian belief. So the next time you see a cartouche, remember, it's not just a name tag. It's a time capsule of divine kingship, a shield against chaos, and a cipher that even the ancients manipulated to rewrite history. And speaking of rewriting history, our next code takes us into the heart of royal renewal, the Hebsed festival, where pharaohs performed rituals to prove they still had the gods' favor. Now, let's turn our gaze upward to the celestial wonders hidden in the Temple of Esna. While Dendera's zodiac often steals the spotlight, the ceiling of Esna's temple holds its own breathtaking code, a star map that intertwines mythology, astronomy, and divine power in ways you might not expect. Imagine standing beneath this ancient ceiling where the gods and constellations seem to come alive. Unlike Dendera's famous circular zodiac, Esna's celestial display is spread across rectangular panels, each bursting with intricate detail. Here, the sky isn't just mapped, it's narrated. The figures aren't merely stars, they're characters in a cosmic drama, with the lioness goddess Sekhmet prowling beside the ram-headed Khnum, and the serpent Apophis writhing near the scales of justice. What makes Esna's zodiac unique? For starters, it's a blend of Egyptian and Greco-Roman influences. While Dendera's zodiac leans heavily into Babylonian astrology, Esna's carvings reflect a later period when foreign rulers like the Ptolemies sought to merge their traditions with Egypt's timeless symbols. Look closely and you'll spot familiar zodiac signs: Virgo, Leo, Scorpio, but with an Egyptian twist. The Virgin holds a sheaf of wheat like the goddess Isis, and the Scorpion is flanked by Serket, the protector against venom. But the real hidden code lies in the temple's alignment. Esna's zodiac wasn't just decorative, it was functional. Certain constellations align with the temple's axis during key festivals, like the annual flooding of the Nile. When the star Sirius rose heralding the flood, the depiction of Sopdet, Sirius's divine form, would be illuminated by dawn light streaming through the entrance. This wasn't just art, it was a celestial clock syncing earthly rituals with the heavens. Compare this to Dendera and the differences speak volumes. Dendera's zodiac is a snapshot of the sky at a specific moment, possibly marking the temple's foundation date. Esna's, however, feels more like a living calendar, its panels updating the mythic cycle with each passing season. Where Dendera shows the sky as a fixed wheel, Esna's feels dynamic, a testament to how Egyptian astronomy evolved under foreign rule while keeping its soul intact. And then there are the mysteries. Esna's zodiac includes figures not found elsewhere, like a curious bird-headed being clutching a serpent. Some scholars argue it's a forgotten constellation, others see a coded reference to a lost myth. Even the colors hold secrets. Traces of original paint reveal that certain stars were highlighted in blue, perhaps to mark their ritual significance. So why does this matter? Because Esna's ceiling isn't just a pretty picture. It's a bridge between earth and sky, a fusion of cultures, and a reminder that the ancients saw the cosmos as a story. They were part of one where gods, kings, and stars shared the same stage. And as we ponder these celestial codes, our next journey takes us even deeper into the unseen, toward the cryptic sketches scribbled on broken pottery shards, where everyday Egyptians left their own hidden messages. Now, let's shift our attention from the grand celestial maps to something far more humble yet equally fascinating: the broken pieces of pottery known as ostraca. While temples and tombs often steal the spotlight, these everyday fragments offer a rare glimpse into the lives of ordinary ancient Egyptians. Picture this: a scribe hunched over a shard of pottery, scratching out a quick note or a rough sketch. Unlike the polished hieroglyphs on temple walls, these markings are raw, unfiltered, and deeply personal. Some ostraca contain shopping lists or work records, but others hide something far more intriguing: cryptic symbols, playful doodles, or even practiced drawings by apprentice scribes. What makes these silent symbols so special? For one, they reveal the human side of ancient Egypt. A scribe might sketch a caricature of their teacher, complete with exaggerated features, or jot down a humorous poem. Others contain half-finished hieroglyphs showing the painstaking process of learning this complex script. These weren't meant for temples or tombs. They were the sticky notes of their time, tossed aside once their purpose was served. But not all ostraca are so light-hearted. Some bear mysterious symbols that defy easy explanation: geometric patterns, unusual animals, or even what appear to be coded messages. One famous example from Deir el-Medina, the village of tomb builders, shows a grid of symbols that some believe could be an early form of cryptography. Was it a game, a secret communication, or something else entirely? The real hidden code here lies in what these shards don't say. Unlike official inscriptions which were carefully curated, ostraka capture the unscripted moments of daily life. A sketch of a dancing girl might hint at forgotten folk traditions, while a hastily drawn map could reveal how workers navigated the Valley of the Kings. Even the mistakes are telling. A misspelled word or a botched hieroglyph shows us that ancient Egyptians were just as human as we are. And then there's the question of why pottery shards. Why not papyrus? The answer is simple. Ostraka were cheap, plentiful, and disposable. Papyrus was expensive, reserved for important documents, but a broken part could be reused endlessly. In a way, these fragments became the perfect canvas for experimentation, gossip, and even rebellion. Some ostraka from Deir el-Medina record workers' complaints about late wages prove that labor strikes aren't a modern invention. So what can we learn from these silent symbols? They remind us that history isn't just carved in stone. It's scribbled in the margins, sketched on broken pottery, and hidden in the everyday. Where grand monuments tell the story of pharaohs and gods, ostraka whisper the stories of the people, their humor, their struggles, and their secrets. As we piece together these fragments of the past, our next discovery takes us even closer to the hands that shaped them, toward the hidden labor records that reveal how ancient Egypt's greatest monuments were built. Now let's journey deeper into the Valley of the Kings, where modern technology is peeling back layers of sand and stone to reveal secrets long thought lost. While Tutankhamun's tomb captured the world's imagination, recent radar scans suggest there's far more hidden beneath this ancient burial ground than we ever imagined. Picture the valley not as a static museum of the past, but as a living puzzle. In recent years, ground-penetrating radar has detected tantalizing anomalies, voids, and chambers tucked behind known walls or buried deep beneath the valley floor. One of the most intriguing discoveries is a potential corridor-like space near Tutankhamun's burial chamber, sparking theories that it could lead to the long-lost tomb of Queen Nefertiti. Other scans hint at undiscovered tombs, possibly belonging to lesser-known royals or even high-ranking officials, granted the rare honor of burial in this sacred valley. What makes these hidden chambers so compelling is the possibility they hold untouched treasures and texts. Unlike tombs plundered in antiquity or hastily excavated in the early 20th century, an undisturbed burial could offer a pristine snapshot of royal funerary practices. Imagine uncovering new spells from the Book of the Dead, or artifacts that rewrite our understanding of a pharaoh's reign. Even the architecture of these spaces could reveal hidden codes, perhaps alignments with stars or symbolic pathways meant to guide the soul. But the real challenge lies in interpreting these ghostly radar shadows. Are they natural fissures in the rock or carefully carved chambers? Some skeptics argue that the valley's complex geology can mimic man-made structures, creating false hopes. Yet the persistence of these signals keeps archaeologists digging, both literally and figuratively. Every scan refines the picture, and with each pass, the hidden codes of the valley grow clearer. One thing is certain: the Valley of the Kings hasn't given up all its secrets. Whether these chambers hold royal mummies, forgotten caches of artifacts, or even cryptographic inscriptions, they remind us that ancient Egypt still has stories to tell. And as technology advances, who knows what other doors might creak open in this silent city of the dead. With that in mind, our next discovery takes us from the grandeur of royal tombs to the intimate details of everyday life, where even the wrappings of the dead held hidden messages waiting to be decoded. Now, let's step into the world of the unseen, where the boundary between life and death blurred in the minds of the ancient Egyptians. Hidden within the walls of tombs, false doors served as mystical gateways, bridging the gap between the living and the departed. These intricately carved stone panels weren't just decorative. They were functional portals designed with a sacred purpose. Imagine standing before one of these false doors, its surface covered in hieroglyphs and images of offerings. To the untrained eye, it might look like a solid wall, but to the ancient Egyptians, it was a passageway for the Ka, the life force of the deceased. The belief was simple yet profound. The spirit could pass through this symbolic door to receive food, prayers, and gifts left by loved ones. Inscriptions around the door often included the deceased's name and titles, along with spells to ensure their Ka could move freely between realms. What makes these false doors so fascinating is their dual nature. While they were solid and immovable, they functioned as active spiritual conduits. Some were placed in the tomb's offering chapel, where family members would perform rituals, while others were hidden deep within the burial chamber itself. The design varied across dynasties. Some featured elaborate lintels and jambs, while others were simpler, but all carried the same promise: eternal connection. Archaeologists have uncovered false doors in tombs of nobles and officials, but they weren't exclusive to the elite. Even middle-class tombs sometimes included smaller, less ornate versions, proving how deeply this belief was woven into Egyptian culture. The false door wasn't just about vanity or status, it was a lifeline, ensuring the deceased remained part of the community long after their physical departure. And here's the hidden code within these doors: their orientation. Many were aligned to face the rising sun, linking them to the cycle of rebirth. Others pointed toward the Nile, symbolizing the journey to the afterlife. The placement wasn't random, it was a carefully calculated part of the tomb's spiritual architecture. As we move forward, our next discovery takes us from these symbolic gateways to the very fabric of mummification itself, where even the bandages wrapped around the dead held secrets waiting to be unraveled. Now, let's shift our gaze from the silent stone of false doors to something far more delicate yet equally mysterious: the blue lotus. This enchanting flower, often depicted in ancient Egyptian art, wasn't just a symbol of beauty. Hidden within its petals lay a secret that blurred the lines between the sacred and the sensory. The blue lotus, or Nymphea caerulea, wasn't merely a decorative motif in tomb paintings or temple carvings. Scholars have long debated its role, but modern research suggests something extraordinary. This flower may have been a key to altered states of consciousness. When soaked in wine or brewed as a tea, the blue lotus releases compounds with mild psychoactive effects enough to induce euphoria or vivid dreams. Imagine priests or initiates consuming it during rituals, their minds opening to visions of the divine. Artwork from the New Kingdom offers clues. Scenes in tombs and temples show the blue lotus in revelry, often clutched by figures in ecstatic poses or offered to gods like Nefertum, the deity of perfume and healing. Even Tutankhamun's burial included garlands of blue lotus, hinting at its spiritual significance. Was it a tool to commune with the gods or a sacred enhancer for ceremonies? The evidence leans toward both, but here's the twist: the blue lotus also symbolized rebirth. Its daily cycle, blooming at dawn and closing at dusk, mirrored the sun god Ra's journey through the sky and the underworld. This duality made it a perfect emblem for rituals bridging life and death. Yet its narcotic properties add a tantalizing layer. Could temple rituals have included controlled intoxication to deepen spiritual experiences? Some murals depict banquets where guests wear lotus headdresses, their faces serene, as if suspended between worlds. Archaeology adds weight to the theory. Residue on ceremonial vessels and traces in mummy hair have tested positive for lotus compounds. Meanwhile, texts like the Ebers Papyrus reference its medicinal use, but carefully avoid outright mention of its mind-altering effects, a possible coded silence. As we peel back the layers, the blue lotus emerges not just as a flower, but as a living paradox, a bridge between the earthly and the divine, the sober and the transcendent. And with that, we turn to another intimate secret of the afterlife: the hidden messages woven into the very bandages that wrapped the dead. Now, let's step away from the mystical allure of the Blue Lotus and into the gritty reality of everyday life in ancient Egypt. Hidden among the pottery shards and discarded fragments at Deir el-Medina lies a surprising code, one that reveals the voices of ordinary workers who dared to challenge the system. These weren't spells or sacred symbols, but something just as powerful: the world's first recorded labor strikes etched in hieratic script on humble ostraka. Deir el-Medina wasn't just any village. It was home to the artisans and laborers who built the tombs of pharaohs in the Valley of the Kings. And while their craftsmanship adorned the afterlife of rulers, their own lives were far from glamorous. Payment delays, food shortages, and grueling conditions pushed these workers to do something unprecedented. They walked off the job. The ostraka, often used as makeshift notepads, preserved their demands in stark detail. One fragment from the reign of Ramses III records a blunt ultimatum. "We are hungry," it reads. "We will not return until we are paid." What makes these records so extraordinary isn't just their age, but their sophistication. The workers organized, sent representatives, and even negotiated terms. A level of collective action that feels startlingly modern. Hieratic script, the cursive cousin of hieroglyphs, was their tool, turning everyday complaints into a coded cry for fairness. Some ostraka even show calculations of rations owed, proving these weren't impulsive protests but carefully planned movements. Archaeologists have pieced together how these strikes unfolded. When rations of grain, oil, and fish failed to arrive, work on the royal tombs ground to a halt. Officials, faced with the unthinkable, a delay in the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, eventually caved. The workers' victory was temporary, but their words endured, scribbled on pottery scraps that survived millennia. Yet there's a deeper code here too. The very act of recording these strikes hints at a quiet subversion. In a society where pharaohs were gods and dissent was rare, these ostraka became secret ledgers of resistance. They weren't carved in stone for temples, but hidden in the rubble, waiting to be rediscovered. As we unravel these hidden labor records, we're reminded that history isn't just written by kings. It's also scratched onto broken pottery by the hands of those who built empires. And with that, we turn to another intimate artifact, the cryptic symbols adorning the bandages of mummies, where protection and prayer intertwined thread by thread. Shifting from the whispers of labor strikes to the sacred silence of temples, we uncover a divine code, one where even the names of gods were cloaked in secrecy. In ancient Egypt, knowing a deity's true name wasn't just about reverence, it was about wielding their power. And so, the priests devised a cunning system, cryptographic names hidden behind rare hieroglyphs or clever rebus puzzles. Take Ra, the sun god. His most potent name wasn't spelled out plainly. Instead, it was concealed within the myth of Isis and the 7 scorpions, where the goddess tricks Ra into revealing it by poisoning him. Only with his true name could she heal him and steal a fraction of his power. This wasn't just storytelling, it was a coded lesson in the sacred danger of divine knowledge. Other gods had names written with hieroglyphs so obscure they baffled even later scribes. Ammon, the Hidden One, was often depicted with symbols that doubled as riddles: a ram's horn for strength, an owl for mystery. Some names were split across multiple glyphs, forcing the reader to piece them together like a celestial jigsaw. And then there were the rebus puzzles, where sounds of unrelated objects combined to whisper a god's name. Imagine calling upon Thoth by drawing an ibis, a hand, and a loaf of bread, each symbol a syllable in his hidden title. Why such secrecy? Because in Egyptian belief, names held the essence of existence. To know a god's true name was to command their favor or their fury. Priests guarded these codes fiercely, using them only in the most sacred rituals. Even in temple carvings, a deity's name might be written backward or swapped with a harmless epithet to confuse evil spirits, yet cracks in the code remain. The Turin Papyrus, for instance, lists forbidden names of demons, their glyphs twisted into knots to neutralize their threat. and in the Book of the Dead, spells sometimes substitute a god's name with a blank space, a silent admission that some powers are too great to write aloud. As we decipher these cryptographic names, we glimpse a world where language was magic and every syllable could summon or suppress the divine. And with that, we turn to another gleaming mystery, the lost art of Egyptian glassmaking, where vibrant beads held secrets of their own. Now, let's step into the shimmering world of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship, where glass wasn't just a material, it was a language of color and symbolism. The lost art of Egyptian glassmaking reveals a code woven into every bead and amulet, where hues like deep blue and fiery red carried meanings far beyond their beauty. Take that iconic cobalt blue, for instance. This wasn't just a pretty shade, it mirrored the Nile at dusk and the heavens themselves, symbolizing creation and rebirth. Pharaohs and priests wore blue glass beads to channel the divine, believing the color could ward off chaos and invoke the god's protection. Even in death, the deceased were adorned with blue glass amulets shaped like the Eye of Horus, ensuring safe passage to the afterlife. Then there's the bold red glass, vibrant as the desert sun. This color pulsed with the energy of life and power, often reserved for amulets depicting Sekhmet, the lioness goddess of war. Red glass beads were thought to harness her ferocity, offering strength in battle or protection against illness. But here's the twist, creating these colors wasn't simple. Egyptian artisans mastered a delicate alchemy, mixing minerals like cobalt and copper into molten glass at precise temperatures, a secret recipe guarded as closely as the names of the gods. The symbolism didn't stop at color. The shapes of glass amulets were a code in themselves. A scarab beetle carved from blue glass wasn't just jewelry, it was a promise of transformation, echoing the sun god's journey across the sky. A red glass ankh wasn't merely decorative, it was a talisman for eternal vitality. Even the way these pieces were strung together told a story, with patterns mimicking celestial cycles or sacred spells. Archaeologists have found glass workshops near temples, suggesting priests may have overseen production, infusing each piece with ritual significance. And some beads contain hidden inscriptions, tiny hieroglyphs etched into their surfaces, visible only under magnification. These minute details suggest glassmaking wasn't just a trade, it was a sacred act blending artistry with spirituality. As the light catches these ancient glass treasures today, we're not just seeing brilliant colors, we're decoding a lost language of faith and power. And with that, we turn to the silent language of statues, where every pose held a message waiting to be read. Now, let's shift our gaze from the vibrant world of glass to the silent eloquence of stone. In ancient Egypt, statues weren't just art. They were frozen dialogues, their poses whispering secrets of power, duty, and divinity. Every stance, from the confident stride of a pharaoh to the humble crouch of a scribe, was a carefully coded message. Take the iconic striding pose of kings, one leg forward, arms rigid at their sides. This wasn't just about grandeur, it was a declaration. The forward step symbolized the pharaoh's eternal march toward maintaining cosmic order, or Ma'at, while the rigid arms, often clutching scepters, showed readiness to rule and defend. Even in stillness, these statues pulsed with the energy of a leader mid-action, as if frozen in the act of guiding their people. Then there's the seated scribe, cross-legged with a papyrus unrolled across his lap. This pose wasn't merely practical, it was a badge of intellect. The slight forward lean, the attentive gaze, even the relaxed hands poised to write, all signaled a life devoted to recording history, administering justice, or composing sacred texts. Unlike the rigid pharaohs, scribes were carved with subtle softness around the belly, a quiet nod to their scholarly rather than martial lives, but the codes go deeper. Statues of gods often broke human proportions to convey otherworldliness. Hathor's cow-eared form or Thoth's ibis-headed figure weren't just artistic choices, they were visual shorthand for divine domain. Even the direction of a statue's gaze held meaning. A deity looking east might greet the rising sun, while one facing west could guard the realm of the dead. And here's a fascinating twist. Some statues were designed to interact. Kneeling figures holding offering tables weren't just decorative. They allowed the living to feed the deceased eternally by placing real offerings. The slight upward tilt of their heads made it seem they watched gratefully, blurring the line between stone and spirit. From the colossal to the miniature, each pose was a language. A standing woman with one hand on her hip might be a priestess channeling a goddess, while a child statue gripping a lock of hair signaled mourning. Even broken poses spoke. A statue intentionally damaged in antiquity often meant someone was erasing a ruler's legacy. As we decode these stances, we realize ancient Egyptians didn't just carve statues, they froze time, ambition, and prayer into stone. And with that, we're ready to unravel another layer of their hidden world. Now, let's step into the grand spectacle of the Heb-Sed festival, a ceremony so pivotal it could make or break a pharaoh's reign. Picture this: after 30 years on the throne, the king didn't just celebrate, he proved his divine right to rule through a series of coded rituals designed to showcase his vitality and connection to the gods. At the heart of the festival was the symbolic race. The pharaoh, dressed in a short kilt and carrying the flail and crook, would sprint between markers representing the borders of Egypt. This wasn't just a test of speed, it was a reenactment of the mythical unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, a physical demonstration that the king still had the strength to protect and unify his kingdom. Some scholars believe the course was precisely measured to mirror the celestial path of the sun god Ra, tying the pharaoh's endurance to the eternal cycle of day and night. But the rituals didn't stop there. The pharaoh would also make offerings to the gods in a pavilion lined with statues of deities, each carefully positioned to reflect the cosmic order. Here's the twist: these statues weren't passive observers. Their placement and the order of offerings followed a hidden script, reinforcing the king's role as the intermediary between heaven and earth. A misstep in the ritual sequence could be interpreted as a sign of divine disfavor, so every gesture, every chant was a meticulously rehearsed code. One of the most intriguing elements was the appearance ceremony, where the pharaoh was crowned anew, first with the white crown of Upper Egypt, then the red crown of Lower Egypt. This double coronation wasn't just pageantry. It symbolically reset the clock on his reign, as if the gods themselves were granting him a fresh mandate. Some temple reliefs even show the king being nursed by a goddess during the festival, a powerful visual metaphor for rebirth and renewed divine favor. And then there were the said festival robes, a bizarre costume combining a tight-fitting cloak with a bull's tail. This wasn't just regalia, it was a walking cipher. The tail evoked the strength of the sacred Apis bull, while the cloak's intricate pleats may have represented the layers of time the pharaoh sought to master. Even the festival's timing held meaning. While traditionally held at 30-year intervals, some kings, like Ramesses II, staged it more frequently, a clever bit of political theater to quiet doubts about their aging rule. From the racetrack to the temple, every moment of the Heb-Sed was a living code, a performance where the stakes were nothing less than eternity. And as the dust settled on these ancient rites, the message was clear: a pharaoh who could renew his bond with the gods could defy time itself. Shifting our focus from grand ceremonies to the quiet intimacy of the tomb, let's unravel the secrets woven into the very fabric of mummification, the hidden codes in mummy bandages. At first glance, these linen strips might seem like simple burial shrouds, but look closer, and you'll discover a labyrinth of symbols, spells, and even star maps inked onto the cloth. Take the mummy of a nobleman named Petasiris, for example. His wrappings weren't just blank layers, they were covered in columns of hieratic script, tiny prayers meant to guide his soul through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Some bandages bore the names of gods like Anubis or Osiris, written in a looping cursive that only priests could fully decipher. these weren't just labels, they were divine invitations, ensuring the deceased would be recognized and protected in the afterlife. But the codes go deeper. In the 21st dynasty, artisans began painting intricate scenes directly onto the linen, winged scarabs, solar barks, even the demon Ammit waiting by the scales of judgment. These weren't mere decorations. Each image corresponded to a spell from the Book of the Dead, activated by contact with the mummy's body. Imagine it, a funeral shroud doubling as a portable guidebook to eternity. Some of the most fascinating examples come from the so-called cartonnage masks. Beneath the gilded surface, archaeologists have found bandages layered with recycled papyri tax records, love letters, even shopping lists, all hidden beneath sacred text. Was this thriftiness or a clever metaphor? To the Egyptians, even scrap paper could become part of the cosmic code, transformed by ritual into a shield for the dead. And then there's the mystery of the patterns. Certain mummies, like those from the Ptolemaic era, were wrapped in geometric grids resembling the night sky. Scholars debate whether these were star charts to help the soul navigate the heavens or magical barriers to repel evil spirits. Either way, the message was clear. Not a single thread was left to chance. From the first strip to the final knot, every layer was a whispered prayer, a hidden key to immortality. As we peel back these ancient linens, we're not just uncovering cloth, we're reading a language of protection, written in flax and ink, that bridge the gap between this world and the next. Now, let's step even further back in time, before the pyramids, before the pharaohs, to the very dawn of Egyptian civilization, where the enigmatic symbols on Nakata pottery might hold the earliest clues to a hidden code. These preternastic artifacts, dating back over 5,000 years, are more than just ancient dishes. They're canvases of mystery, painted with swirling patterns, animals, and strange geometric shapes that some scholars believe could be the roots of Egypt's later writing systems. Take a simple Nakata jar, for instance. On its surface, you might spot a zigzag line resembling water, or a row of stick figure animals that look almost like early hieroglyphs. At first glance, they seem like decorative doodles, but look closer. That zigzag, it's eerily similar to the hieroglyph for water used millennia later. Those animals, they mirror the symbolic menagerie found in formal temple inscriptions. Could these potters have been sketching the first draft of a language that would one day adorn royal tombs? The debate among archaeologists is fierce. Some argue these symbols were purely artistic, a way to beautify everyday objects. Others point to the consistency of certain motifs like the falcon or the sickle across hundreds of miles and centuries, suggesting a shared symbolic vocabulary. Then there's the tantalizing theory that these pots weren't just storage containers but ritual objects, their markings serving as silent prayers or ownership codes. Imagine a farmer etching a goat onto his jar not just for decoration but to claim it or to invoke a god's blessing on its contents. What's most striking is how these early symbols evolved. Compare a Nakata pot's crude boat sketch to the sleek solar barks in New Kingdom hieroglyphs. The connection isn't direct, but the idea is there, a visual language growing more refined, more sacred over time. Even the famous Nama palette, often called the first political document in hieroglyphs, carries echoes of Nakata's bold, graphic style. It's as if the symbols slowly stepped out of the clay and onto stone, gaining power with each generation. Yet the full meaning of these pottery codes remains just out of reach. Were they proto-writing, a kind of prehistoric emoji system, or simply the aesthetic experiments of a culture finding its voice? Either way, these humble pots remind us that every stroke, every symbol, might be a whisper from a world before writing, a world where art and language were still tangled together, waiting to be unraveled. Now, let's shift our focus to one of Egypt's most groundbreaking structures, the Step Pyramid of Djoser. While its towering tiers are iconic, the real mystery lies beneath the surface, in a hidden world of tunnels and chambers that still baffle archaeologists today. This labyrinth beneath the pyramid isn't just a burial site, it's a maze of unanswered questions. When you descend into these underground passages, you're stepping into a carefully engineered puzzle. The tunnels stretch for miles, twisting and turning in ways that defy simple explanation. Some lead to storage rooms packed with thousands of stone vessels, while others dead end abruptly, as if their purpose was deliberately obscured. One theory suggests these chambers were meant to mirror the Pharaoh's journey through the afterlife, with each corridor representing a challenge or trial. But why such complexity? Why not a straightforward tomb like those of later rulers? Then there's the curious case of the blue-tiled chambers. These rooms, lined with shimmering faience tiles, seem to evoke the reed marshes of the Nile, a symbolic paradise for the deceased. Yet no other pyramid from this era features anything like it. Were these tiles meant to guide Djoser's spirit, or did they serve a ritual function we've yet to uncover? Even more puzzling are the sealed-off galleries, some containing dummy doors and false passages. Were they decoys to thwart grave robbers or part of an elaborate spiritual safeguard? Modern technology has only deepened the intrigue. Recent scans reveal hidden voids and unexplored branches, hinting that much of this subterranean network remains unmapped. Some researchers speculate these spaces could hold undiscovered artifacts or even earlier structures repurposed by Djoser's architects. Others wonder if the tunnels align with celestial patterns, echoing the pyramid's stairway to the stars motif. What's clear is that the Step Pyramid's underground world wasn't just functional, it was profoundly symbolic. Every twist, every chamber seems to encode a message about death, rebirth, and the Pharaoh's divine role. Yet the full meaning of this code remains locked in the shadows, waiting for the next breakthrough to illuminate its secrets. One thing's certain, Djoser's labyrinth isn't just a tomb. It's a riddle carved in stone. Moving beyond the labyrinth of Djoser's pyramid, let's uncover another layer of Egypt's hidden codes, this time etched not in stone but in the very objects that traveled across borders. The hidden trade routes of ancient Egypt reveal a sophisticated network of exchanges, where goods, ideas, and even gods moved between distant lands. Hieroglyphs and artifacts act as silent witnesses to these coded connections, offering clues about Egypt's relationships with legendary places like Punt, Mesopotamia, and the Aegean. Take the fabled land of Punt, often called God's Land by the Egyptians. Reliefs in the Temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari depict ships returning with heaps of exotic treasures: ebony, incense, live myrrh trees, and even gold. But Punt's exact location remains debated. Some scholars place it in modern-day Eritrea or Somalia, while others argue for Yemen. The hieroglyphs describing these voyages aren't just shopping lists, they're diplomatic records encoding respect for Punt's rulers and the divine favor sought through trade. The goods themselves carried symbolic weight. Myrrh, for instance, wasn't just a luxury, it was sacred, used in temple rituals and embalming, tying trade directly to the spiritual realm. Then there's Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization far to the northeast. Cylinder seals from Mesopotamia have been found in Egyptian tombs, their intricate designs foreign yet fascinating to the Nile's artisans. These small objects were more than just imports. They were coded messages of power and prestige, often repurposed by Egyptian elites as amulets. Even the lapis lazuli that adorned royal jewelry traced back to Afghan mines, revealing a chain of intermediaries stretching across continents. The presence of Mesopotamian motifs in early dynastic art hints at a shared visual language, a silent dialogue between two great cultures. Across the Mediterranean, the Aegean world left its own marks. Minoan frescoes discovered in Avaris, the Hyksos capital, show vibrant scenes of bull leaping, a stark contrast to Egypt's formal art style. Were these paintings diplomatic gifts or evidence of Minoan artists working in Egypt? Meanwhile, Egyptian scarabs and pottery found in Crete and Mycenae suggest a two-way exchange. The Uluburun shipwreck off Turkey's coast, packed with Egyptian gold, Canaanite jars, and Mycenaean swords, serves as a time capsule of this interconnected world. Each artifact is a puzzle piece, revealing how trade routes doubled as channels for cultural codes. What makes these exchanges truly fascinating is their duality. On one level, they were practical, securing resources like timber from Lebanon or silver from Anatolia. But on another, they were deeply symbolic. Foreign goods often bore the aura of the exotic, used to display a pharaoh's reach and divine mandate. A Mesopotamian seal in an Egyptian tomb wasn't just an object, it was a statement. Our power extends beyond the Nile. Even the act of trade was ritualized. Records describe gifts exchanged between kings, framing commerce as a sacred bond. Yet gaps remain. Why did trade with Punt vanish after the New Kingdom? How did Aegean sailors navigate without maps? Some answers may lie in overlooked inscriptions or shipwrecks yet to be found. What's clear is that these routes were more than economic highways. They were living codes, constantly rewritten by diplomacy, discovery, and the occasional storm that sent a ship to the seabed. Every artifact, every hieroglyph, is a whisper from a world where borders were fluid and connections were carved in stone. Now, let's turn our attention to a script that once thrived in the bustling markets and courtrooms of ancient Egypt, but now lingers in the shadows of its more famous counterparts. The forgotten language of Demotic represents a pivotal shift in Egyptian society, bridging the gap between the age of pharaohs and the rise of the Coptic era. Unlike the sacred hieroglyphs carved into temple walls or the formal hieratic script of priests, Demotic was the language of everyday life, contracts, letters, and legal disputes. Its cursive strokes, flowing and efficient, tell the story of a society in transition where practicality began to eclipse tradition. Demotic emerged around the 7th century BCE, a time when Egypt was increasingly interacting with foreign powers like the Greeks and Persians. The script itself evolved from hieratic, but its streamlined form made it far quicker to write, perfect for recording the fast-paced dealings of merchants and bureaucrats. Imagine a marketplace in Memphis where a trader scribbles a sales agreement on a pottery shard, or a scribe drafts a marriage contract on papyrus. These were the moments Demotic captured. Yet, despite its everyday use, Demotic wasn't just mundane. Legal texts often carried hidden nuances with phrases and formulas that encoded societal norms. For instance, a property dispute might reveal tensions between Egyptian and Greek residents, or a loan document could hint at economic struggles under foreign rule. What makes Demotic particularly fascinating is its role as a cultural bridge. By the Ptolemaic period, it coexisted with Greek, the language of Egypt's new rulers. The famous Rosetta stone, with its trio of scripts, shows Demotic sandwiched between hieroglyphs and Greek, a literal middle ground between old and new. But Demotic wasn't just a passive tool. It adapted, absorbing Greek loanwords and even influencing Coptic, the final stage of the Egyptian language, which borrowed Demotic letters for its alphabet. This linguistic evolution mirrors Egypt's own transformation, as pharaonic traditions blended with Hellenistic influences. Yet, Demotic's decline was as significant as its rise. By the 4th century CE, Coptic, written with Greek letters and infused with Demotic remnants, had taken over. The once vibrant script faded, surviving only in a handful of late temple inscriptions. Today, Demotic texts like the legal codes from the Temple of Soknapeu Nisos or the personal letters found in trash heaps offer archaeologists a raw, unfiltered glimpse into ordinary lives. They're time capsules, preserving everything from tax complaints to spells, each line a whisper from a society caught between its glorious past and an uncertain future. The story of Demotic reminds us that languages aren't just tools for communication. They're living records of human adaptation, encoding the hopes, conflicts, and daily struggles of those who wielded them. And while Demotic may no longer be spoken, its legacy lingers in the ink-stained papyri that continue to decode Egypt's ever-shifting identity. Now, as we reach the final hidden code of ancient Egypt, we encounter one of the most profound and enduring concepts of their civilization, the Pharaoh's Ka. Unlike the tangible scripts and carvings we've explored so far, the Ka represents something far more mystical, the life force or spiritual essence that animated both the living and the dead. To the ancient Egyptians, death wasn't an end but a transition, and the Ka was the key to ensuring eternity. The Ka wasn't just a vague idea, it demanded practical care. Tombs were designed as eternal homes for the Ka, filled with statues known as Ka statues that served as physical vessels for this energy. These weren't mere decorations. If a body was damaged or lost, the Ka could inhabit its statue instead, ensuring the deceased's presence endured. Offerings of food, drink, and incense were vital too, as the Ka required sustenance just like the living. Inscriptions often pleaded with visitors to leave offerings, sometimes even threatening divine punishment for neglect, but the Pharaoh's Ka held special power. As a bridge between gods and humans, the king's life force was believed to sustain the entire kingdom. Temples housed statues of past pharaohs where priests performed daily rituals to nourish their Kas, maintaining cosmic order or mat. Even the pyramids, with their hidden chambers and intricate passages, were designed to protect and energize the pharaoh's Ka for eternity. What's remarkable is how this concept evolved. Early texts depict the Ka as a protective double, but over centuries it grew intertwined with the soul's other aspects like the Ba, which could travel between realms. The Book of the Dead even includes spells to reunite the Ka and Ba after death, ensuring a complete afterlife. And while the Ka might seem abstract, its legacy is concrete. Thousands of statues, tombs, and offerings reveal how deeply Egyptians believed in this eternal code. The Ka's true brilliance lies in its duality. It was both a spiritual force and a practical concern, shaping everything from art to architecture. Even today, when we see a pharaoh's serene statue or the treasures buried with them, we're glimpsing a civilization's tireless effort to cheat oblivion. The Ka wasn't just a belief, it was the ultimate hidden code, a promise that life, in some form, would never end. And in that, the ancient Egyptians may have succeeded, as their Kas still speak to us through the ages. As we wrap up this journey through the 50 hidden codes of ancient Egypt, it's clear that these mysteries are far more than just puzzles. They're windows into a civilization that saw the world in ways we're still deciphering. From the hieroglyphs that held layers of meaning to the cosmic alignments of the pyramids, each code reveals how deeply the Egyptians intertwined the practical with the spiritual. They didn't just build tombs or carve symbols, they embedded their beliefs, fears, and hopes into every stone, every spell, and every ritual. Think about how these codes reshape our understanding. The Book of the Dead wasn't just a funeral text, it was a guidebook for navigating the afterlife, filled with moral tests and divine encounters. The Sphinx's riddles and the pyramid's hidden chambers weren't just architectural quirks, they were deliberate messages perhaps meant for the gods themselves. Even the humblest objects like scarab amulets or animal mummies carried weighty symbolism, proving that nothing in ancient Egypt was accidental. What's truly fascinating is how many of these codes remain open to interpretation. The Dendera Light, the Abydos Helicopter glyphs, the unreadable names of gods, they all invite us to keep questioning. Were the Egyptians preserving advanced knowledge, or were they simply masters of metaphor? That's the thrill of history. The answers aren't always clear, but the search is endlessly rewarding. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Which of these 50 codes fascinated you the most? Was it the mathematical precision of the pyramids, the eerie curse of the pharaohs, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you've heard of another Egyptian mystery we didn't cover, let us know. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into history's enigmas, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an adventure. The past is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered, and together we'll keep exploring them. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and keep decoding the mysteries of our world.